I'm going to reveal what ancient warrior cultures understood that our modern world has forgotten. The sacred truth that makes your natural masculine energy not just accepted, but deeply honored. By the end of this video, you'll know how to stand in your full masculine presence while making others feel secure in your strength, not threatened by it. You wake up at night with a feeling you can't name, a heavy weight, a question mark in the dark. Remember when you were young, before the world told you to doubt yourself? There was a clear feeling then. You knew who you were meant to be. The protector, the one who stands at the edge of danger and says, "Not here, not today." The one who carries what others can't. But something changed, didn't it? You offered your strength, not to control, but to help. And they called it toxic. You spoke with sureness, and they said you were being bossy. Your wish to provide was called control. Your natural drive to face danger was called primitive and wrong. Take a breath. Look at what's happened. The things men built their lives on, sacrifice, honor, protection, strength, are now the very things they're told to say sorry for. The calm that helped your grandpa survive war is now being emotionally closed off. The quick decisions that made your dad a leader are now male privilege. You didn't change. The world did. You didn't suddenly become bad. You stood firm while the rules changed under your feet like sand. And now you ask yourself hard questions in the quiet hours. If what made men build civilizations is now seen as bad, where do I fit in? If who I am naturally is seen as broken, how can I ever feel whole? This isn't about wanting to be in charge. This is about something much deeper. Finding your place in a world that seems set on leaving no place for you at all. Picture this. You're at dinner with friends. Someone makes a joke about toxic males, and everyone laughs. You smile too, but something inside you breaks a little more. You've heard it so many times that you almost believe it yourself, that there's something wrong with how you move through the world, that being a man is somehow wrong. The hurt cuts deeper than you'll admit. You've spent years learning to use your strength well, not abuse it, to protect, not control, to lead when needed, to follow when wise. You've carried the weight when others couldn't. You've pushed down fear to face dangers. You've stood your ground when it would have been easier to walk away. And yet, in your close relationships, your steady nature is seen as being closed off. Your solutions are dismissed as trying to fix things, when you were just trying to help when asked. Your quiet moment during a fight, when you take time to think about your words, is labeled as shutting down. The very things that make you reliable in a crisis make you a problem in normal talks. You didn't fail at being a man. What it means to be a man changed while you were standing there. So you start the slow, painful process of erasing yourself. You second-guess every natural response. You say sorry for taking up space. You soften your voice, your stance, your truth. You become a shadow of yourself, wondering if anyone would notice or care if you just disappeared. The loneliness feels like it's crushing you. Who can you talk to when saying these feelings would only prove what others already think, that you don't want to grow? When did being strong become something to say sorry for? When did standing firm become a flaw? Stop and feel the weight of this question. When was the last time someone celebrated your manhood instead of asking you to contain it? When was the last time your natural way of being was welcomed instead of just put up with? Drop a fire emoji in the comments if you felt this hidden wound, this unspoken grief of being told that who you are at your core is something to fix rather than something to honor. The Swiss doctor Carl Jung talked about what he called the shadow, the parts of ourselves we push away into darkness. But Jung knew something deep that our culture misses. A society can have a shadow too. And today, healthy masculine strength has been pushed into that shadow with awful results. Jung wrote, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. Maybe this explains why our culture is so quick to call masculinity toxic, instead of understanding its needed power and purpose. What you're called toxic for, ancient cultures called sacred. Think about the ancient Greek idea of a good man, what Aristotle called arete. This wasn't just about muscles, but about being excellent in character, the balance of courage without recklessness, self-control without weakness, justice without revenge. The Greeks knew that male energy, properly used, wasn't something to fear or push down. It was key to both personal growth and a healthy society. Every native culture in human history recognized this truth through rites of passage for young men. These weren't random traditions, but deep psychological needs, ways to honor the change of boys into men, to acknowledge that male energy needs both to be awakened and guided. Without these containers, without this honoring, something essential gets lost. Pause and think about what we've thrown away. Look at the Japanese samurai tradition and the idea of Bushido, the way of the warrior. At its heart were 7 virtues: integrity, respect, courage, honor, compassion, honesty, and loyalty. Notice that half of these virtues involve holding back and serving others. The warrior was never about controlling others, but about disciplined power used for something greater than himself. Even the knights of the Middle Ages, often misunderstood as just being about male power, were really about using male strength to protect the weak and serve higher ideals. The knight knelt before taking his sword. His power was balanced by humility. Your strength was never meant to be erased. It was meant to be directed. What happens when a culture loses these frameworks? When it calls masculine energy bad instead of channeling it? When it focuses only on the shadow sides while ignoring the light? The philosopher Camille Paglia warned, if civilization had been left in female hands, we would still be living in grass huts. Not because women lack ability, but because the male drive to build, to create order from chaos, to push boundaries, has been a needed force in human growth. But here's the painful truth we must face. We've created a world that depends on male sacrifice while condemning male nature. We want the protection without thanking the protector. We want the buildings without honoring the builders. We want the safety without respecting the strength that provides it. We praise the harvest while attacking the plow. And in this conflict lies your current wound, the gap between what you know yourself to be and what you're told you should be. The real tragedy isn't that masculinity is under attack. It's that we've lost the ability to tell the difference between its light and shadow forms. We've confused the container with what it contains. We've mistaken the misuse of power for power itself. Every energy has both good and bad potential. Fire can warm a home or burn it down. Water can give life or drown it. And male energy, with its drive toward order, protection, achievement, and strength, is no different. Take a moment to understand this key difference. The villain in this story isn't masculinity. It's the voice in our culture that has forgotten the importance of balance, that sees only danger where there is also need. This voice doesn't tell the difference between domination and strength, between control and leadership, between aggression and protective force. It paints with broad strokes and creates false either-or choices, toxic or weak, oppressor or ally, problem or solution. You aren't dangerous because you're strong. You become dangerous only when you forget why that strength matters. Think about how this plays out in your daily life. When you feel the urge to protect someone you love, you pause. Has your wish to keep them safe become overprotective control? When you offer solutions to a problem, you doubt yourself. Are you dismissing feelings in favor of action? When you stand firm in a boundary or belief, you wonder, is your strength now hurting others? You begin to live in a constant state of second-guessing your most natural instincts, and this creates a wound that few talk about, the trauma of being told that your nature is flawed. You don't need to explain why you exist. Let that sink in. Your masculinity, your drive toward achievement, toward protection, toward strength, toward order, needs no excuse. It is not a defect to be fixed. It is an energy to be channeled. The great Dr. Abraham Maslow noted that healthy people bring together both masculine and feminine energies. But bringing together doesn't mean erasing one side. It doesn't mean pushing down one to lift up the other. True balance honors the needed tension between opposing forces. Think of a bridge. It stands because of the tension between opposing cables. Remove that tension, and the whole thing falls down. In the same way, a healthy society needs both masculine and feminine energies pulling against each other. When we demonize either one, we destabilize everything. A world without masculine energy isn't better, it's incomplete. This isn't about going back to some old time where men ruled everything. That's the false story that keeps us stuck. This is about reclaiming something much more nuanced. The understanding that masculine energy, when conscious, when channeled, when in service, is not only valuable, but essential. You don't need to explain why you exist. Look at how we've confused giving in with empathy. True empathy, the ability to stand in another's pain without being overwhelmed by it, requires strength. It requires the ability to hold space for suffering without collapsing into it. That steadiness, that emotional resilience, that's masculine energy at its best. Look at how we've confused people-pleasing with respect. True respect honors boundaries, both yours and others. It doesn't demand that you shrink your needs to meet others. It recognizes that sometimes the most respectful thing you can do is stand firm in your truth, even when that truth isn't comfortable for everyone. Take a breath and recognize this truth. You don't need to explain why you exist. Here's the insight that changes everything. What you're experiencing isn't personal failure. It's not that you're doing masculinity wrong. It's that we're having the wrong conversation about masculinity itself. The path forward isn't to become less of who you are. It's to become more aware of your power and how you use it. It's to tell the difference between shadow masculinity, which operates from fear, insecurity, and the need to dominate, and mature masculinity, which operates from centeredness, purpose, and the desire to protect and create. The ancient wisdom traditions all recognized this truth. The problem isn't power, it's unconscious power. The problem isn't strength, it's unexamined strength. The problem isn't masculinity, it's masculinity cut off from its higher purpose. Your strength isn't the enemy, it's the weapon that's meant to defend what matters. We need to face the identity you've been forced to adopt, the apologetic man. The man who begins sentences with, "I'm sorry, but..." The man who makes himself smaller to appear less threatening. The man who has taken in the message that his natural state of being is problematic. This false identity helps no one. Not you, not those you love, not the world that desperately needs centered, conscious masculine energy more than ever before. Ask yourself, who taught you to say sorry for taking up space? Who convinced you that your strength was something to be ashamed of rather than something to use wisely? Sit with that question for a moment. Ask yourself, what would happen if you stopped trying to twist yourself into shapes that feel wrong? What would happen if you reclaimed your birthright, not to dominate, but to stand in your full presence without apology? Ask yourself, who wins when men are disconnected from their power? Who profits when masculine energy is pushed down rather than channeled? You don't need to explain why you exist. The work ahead isn't about going back to some mythical past. It's about bringing ancient wisdom together with modern awareness. It's about reclaiming the archetypes that have guided men for thousands of years. The warrior who protects boundaries, the king who holds a vision larger than himself, the magician who transforms through wisdom, the lover who connects with depth and passion. These archetypes exist within you already. They aren't relics of a bygone era. but essential expressions of mature masculinity that go beyond time and culture. The world doesn't need weaker men. It needs stronger men with clearer purpose. You don't need to explain why you exist. Here is the soul-deep truth that changes everything. The most powerful thing you can do right now is not to fight those who misunderstand masculinity. It's not to argue or defend or explain. The most powerful thing is to embody conscious masculinity so completely that it becomes obvious why it matters. To stand so firmly in your truth that others feel permission to stand in theirs. To hold boundaries with such clarity that others learn to respect their own. To carry weight with such grace that others discover their own capacity for strength. You don't need to explain why you exist. The world doesn't need weaker men. It needs stronger men with clearer purpose. Men who understand that their power isn't for self-importance, but for service. Men who recognize that true strength protects rather than exploits vulnerability. Men who can be both solid and sensitive, decisive and considerate, powerful and humble. You didn't abandon your post. The definition of honor changed while you stood guard. This isn't about becoming something you're not. It's about remembering something you've always been, beneath the layers of conditioning and apology. It's about shedding the false identity of the problem to be solved and reclaiming your nature as a solution waiting to be engaged. The apologetic man dies today. The conscious man steps forward. Remember that feeling we started with? That heaviness in the night? That questioning of your place? It goes away when you recognize a simple truth. You are not broken. You are not toxic. You are not a problem to be fixed. The discomfort you've felt isn't proof of your failure to evolve. It's your authentic self fighting erasure. It's your soul rejecting falsehood. It's your inner wisdom refusing to apologize for what needs no apology. Being quiet wasn't peace. It was losing yourself. When you reclaim your masculine energy, conscious, directed, purposeful, everything changes. Your relationships deepen because you're no longer pretending, but truly present. Your work transforms because you're acting from conviction rather than seeking approval. Your sense of self stabilizes because you're no longer trying to be someone you're not. The world desperately needs what mature masculinity offers: protection without possession, strength without domination, order without rigidity, achievement without exploitation. These aren't outdated values. They're timeless necessities that every working society requires. Pause and let that truth settle in your body. Your clarity becomes a light for others still lost in confusion. Your boundaries teach others how to set their own. Your centered presence creates space for real connection. Your unwavering commitment to purpose inspires others to find theirs. This isn't about going back to men ruling everything. It's about reclaiming the sacred masculine that stands as an equal and necessary partner to the sacred feminine. Neither complete without the other, both essential to wholeness. The world doesn't need you softer, it needs you awake. The journey begins with a decision, a declaration to yourself that changes everything that follows. Drop in the comments below, "I reclaim my nature." Those 4 words mark the line between the man who apologizes for existing and the man who understands his purpose. Between the man who shrinks to please others' fears and the man who stands in his truth as a gift to a world in desperate need of authentic strength. Type those words, not as a battle cry against others, but as a promise to yourself, as a commitment to honor what you know to be true, no matter who misunderstands it. I reclaim my nature. This conversation is just the beginning. The journey from the apologetic man to the conscious man doesn't happen in a single moment of recognition. It happens through daily practice, through community, through continued exploration of what it means to embody mature masculinity in a world that has forgotten its value. In the coming weeks, we'll be exploring the practical sides of this reclamation. How do you set boundaries without building walls? How do you channel protective energy without slipping into control? How do you lead without dominating? How do you build brotherhood with other men seeking the same balance? What they call toxic isn't your power. It's your power without purpose. If you felt these words in your bones, if you've recognized yourself in this struggle, then join us on this journey. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next video in this series on reclaiming conscious masculinity. This isn't just about personal healing, it's about cultural restoration. It's about remembering ancient wisdom that goes beyond our current confusion. It's about becoming men who don't need to apologize for their nature because they've learned to channel it toward its highest purpose. The world needs you to show up fully, not smaller, not softer, not apologetic, but conscious, directed, and purposeful. Subscribe now and become part of a community reclaiming what was always ours to use well, not to give up. In the quiet after these words fade, a question will stay with you. What if the very thing you've been taught to overcome is actually the key to your deepest offering? There is a solidness to you that this world needs, not despite our modern age, but because of it. In a time of shifting foundations and broken certainties, your ability to stand firm is not outdated, it is essential. You didn't fall behind. The world left behind timeless truths you refuse to forget. You didn't fall behind. You stood still while the world spun in denial of ancient truths. You held space for something that cannot be thrown away without consequences. The oak tree doesn't say sorry to the wind for having roots. The mountain doesn't make itself smaller to make the valley feel taller. The river doesn't question its nature as it cuts through stone on its journey to the sea. And you, man of depth, man of strength, man of purpose, you don't need to explain the fire that burns in you, the boundaries you defend, the order you create from chaos, the weight you're built to carry. This is not pride. This is remembering. This is not going backwards. This is restoration. This is not fighting evolution. This is insisting on wholeness. Stand firm. The world is coming back to you, not the other way around. What if the thing that makes you strong is what they say is wrong? You spent your life learning to stand tall and help others. Now they say your strength is the problem. I promise to reveal what ancient warrior cultures understood that our modern world has forgotten. It's this: masculine energy isn't meant to be dimmed. It's meant to be directed toward protection, creation, and service. Your strength isn't toxic when it flows from a centered place of purpose. Now you understand how to stand in your full masculine presence while making others feel secure in your strength, not threatened by it, not by becoming less powerful, but by becoming more conscious of that power. The truth is, you never needed to say sorry for your nature, only to direct it toward its highest purpose.